when you have to take care of your family, when you got to pay the bills, when you got to do that stuff, it doesn't actually help you on that. Maybe everyone is temporary. You know what I mean? Everyone plays a certain role into your life, and everyone is taking advantage of you or trying to take advantage of you. You're going to need the grounded people around you who actually genuinely love you, care for you, and are going to look out for you. He's like, yo, you're a rapper? I'm like, yeah, I just write raps. And then he's just like, well, I have a studio, I make beats. You know, everyone in high school had like a studio, but it was just like, you know, their computer and just some speakers, right? My mom, I'm just like, okay, she could have been in my life for a long time, but she wasn't. But the purpose she served in my life at that time, making me who I was, I cherish that. The place looks like an art gallery.
Yeah, a lot of people, and I mean, yo, like all the artists, homies, his friends, homies, young artists.
Dope.
Yeah, it's a friend of mine, when I was trying to find a place to live, I was like, how do you decide like what your place looks like if like now you can be picky? He's like, just try to find something that looks like the inside of your head. So like the only
I
thing
think that's the representation of the inside of your head. That's dope.
yes, this is, and everything, all the furniture is borrowed or stolen. I didn't buy anything. The only thing that I bought for this entire place is art. Everything else is just like my mom giving me her old couches, friends having carpets that they couldn't fit in their apartments. So this is
Yeah.
like, my apartment's the place that everybody drops off the shit they don't have room for.
That's resourceful though, you know?
Yeah, no, it's been dope, and it's like it's an old CBC warehouse, so it's like concrete everything, and I can like make as much noise as I want. I had a whole band in here before, and it was like super
That's lit.
dope.
Is that a Lauryn Hill poster on the wall?
This one right here,
The red one?
right here.
The red one.
No,
Yeah.
that's Che Guevara.
Oh, okay. I
Yes,
could.
he
Yeah.
helped liberate Cuba. Yeah, he's a little bit of a controversial figure, but he's a hero of mine.
That's dope.
But yo, thank you so much for being a part of this. You know, through the
Thank you for
mud
having me.
shit. Um, I don't think we've ever had a full ass conversation face to face before. Like
We've had
legit,
it like
now.
we've had it in person a couple of times, but not like to an extent, you know?
In a nice quiet area for the sake of having a conversation.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in passing. And I think for me, the big thing on my artist journey, and I learned this early, and I learned this before I knew other artists. I just learned this from like hearing, you know, especially when the South was popping off, like the Gucci Mans and, you know, the Waka Flockas and stuff. You start to learn that like, yo, the people who are going to have something to show for it are legitimately just the people who stick with it.
That's a fact.
You know, like that's legit the only thing that matters at the end of the day. And it's never about like, can this person rap? Can this person, you know, do their art well? It's like, are they going to stick with it, or are they going to make a more realistic decision and go to med school or, you know, do something else? And, you know, you're definitely one of those guys who stuck with it. And,
Hey,
you know, so I guess my real first question is,
mhm.
why are you doing this?
Why am I doing music?
Yeah.
I would say I'm doing music because like this is what I've always set out to do in life. You know what I mean? Actually, first thing I set out to do in life was be a basketball player, right? But then once I hit high school and I realized I couldn't dunk, you know, and I wasn't 6 feet, then my dreams just kind of like shattered from there. You know what I mean? But music, I kind of just like fell in love with as like a form of therapy. You know what I mean? And I started when I was like 16, and then I just kind of fell in love with it. And then as I started putting music out, like people started to like it. So it grew on me into like something I wanted to do for the rest of my life, right? To a point now, it's just like, to me, if it's not music, I would rather just be dead, in my opinion. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I mean? Like that's how I view it. I'm just like, yo, if it's not going to be music, I really don't want to do anything else in this lifetime. You know what I mean? And if like I want to complete my task that I set out to do, you know what I mean? And if I don't complete my task, I feel like a failure personally. You know what I mean?
What's that task?
That task is to like, I set out to be a musician, to tour the world, make music, have fans, and just like live a lavish lifestyle. You know what I mean? Like I've always like envisioned that for myself, and I've always wanted that for myself. And if I am not able to do that, then like, you know, I feel like a failure. So like I work every single day and I'm dedicated to it, to achieving that. You know what I mean? And I think like 2021 is going to be a great year.
That's dope. So it's interesting. I heard, I think it's you know, Wale. It was like a Wale Breakfast Club interview.
Mhm.
He kind of started saying something along the same lines, where it's like, you know, I have to accomplish X, Y, Z, otherwise I'm going to feel like a failure. And then, you know,
Mhm.
and like Charlemagne and Envy, and then we're like, dude, you're on your like fourth mainstream album. You know, you've
Yeah.
got features, you've done, you know, all these things. Like, what are you talking about? And he had this that same level of drive where he was like, no, it has to be more. And if it's
Hmm.
not more, I think he went as far as said something like, if it's not more, I'm gonna jump off the roof or something. Like he was really
That's how I
heavy on
feel
that.
personally.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how I feel.
And I think there's always that moment where everyone realizes, like, look, it's even less about ticking off things on the box, and it's more about recognizing that this isn't a passion, this is an
Hmm.
obsession, and there's really nothing else I can do.
Hmm.
um and I guess I want to ask how, and there's probably a relationship between you wanting to be a basketball player and now, you wanting to hit new heights in music.
Yeah.
um what is it about these specific goals, I'm saying, touring around the world, um a lavish lifestyle, because even the word lavish has a definition for different people.
Hmm.
What do you think, because those would have both existed as a basketball player and a rapper. So what do you think it is specifically about these things that appeals to you?
That's a good question. I think it's more so the fact that I want to be able, if there's only one life, like let's say there's no reincarnation, right? And we only live one life. I want to be able to say, like, yo, in my one lifetime, I got to do what I wanted to do and what I loved. I accomplished that, right?
Yeah.
And while I did that, I was able to make a living and I was able to be financially stable, take care of my parents, tour around the world, see the world. Cause I feel like a lot of people don't get to see the world. The world's so big, you know what I mean? A lot of people are always just stuck in like wherever they come from and they never get to experience everything else, right? But I think it's more so just about like being financially stable while doing something that I set out to do and something that I love and being able to see this entire planet before like I'm dead and gone, you know? I think
Yeah.
that's what kind of drives me.
Okay. So now with that six, you've been in this game now, I think, well, 6 years, 7 years now?
10 since
10,
2010.
2010, full time.
Yeah.
Has there been a certain, because I know, especially specifically with you, behind the scenes, you understand there's music that feeds your soul, and there's music that'll feed your family,
Mhm.
and then there's also milestones that'll feed your soul or feed your ego, and milestones that'll feed your family, right? And
Yeah.
a lot of the stuff that could look good for the gram, will impress, other people, or it'll make your community proud of you, and it'll energize everybody, but it may not necessarily end up even putting a dollar in your pocket or something. So I know
Mm-hmm.
for me, a good example was I got to perform at Lollapalooza,
Oh, that's dope.
all out of pocket.
Yeah.
So I'm leaving there in the red. Obviously you've been in the game long enough to be like, that's a no-brainer.
Mm-hmm.
Do it 10 out of 10 times. um I know you've had moments of, there's a collaboration with Tory Lanez, there's this opening for Drake, there's a couple of other really cool things.
Mm-hmm.
How much of those experiences have shaped new goals after you've kind of hit them? You're like, all right, this is something that I promised myself would feel a certain way, and then it happened, and
Mm-hmm.
then life kept continuing on. Um, did it meet the expectations? Did it not meet the expectations? Did it change the expectations you had moving forward? I just want you to talk
Mm-hmm.
about some of these visual milestones that everybody else would be like, oh shit, this guy opened for Drake. Oh shit, this guy's got a song with Tory Lanez. Or oh shit, a couple other cool milestones. This guy might have hit X amount of streams, or this guy got to perform in this country. So just talk about that for a little bit.
That's interesting that you say that because I feel like prior to opening up and prior to winning like the Hot 97 contest and everything, I was super excited, right? But then I feel like after I did it, I kind of felt like a sense of like, how do I explain it? I felt a sense of like, okay, this was supposed to happen. Like I was supposed to be here, right? And so once I kind of like, once that registered in my head, I was kind of just like, okay, what's next now? You know what I mean? So it was just like leading up to it is like a great feeling because like you're just like, oh, I'm gonna get this is gonna happen, blah blah blah. And then when it actually happens, you kind of just like take it in for a sec and you're just like, okay, this was supposed to happen. What's next? It's like kind of short-lived, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just like I feel when you get caught up in those like accomplishments or those little milestones and stuff like that, you get jaded a little bit. You know what I mean? And you become like lazy, and then you're just like, oh well, I did this, blah 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 blah, and you start making excuses for yourself. Whereas more so with me, I was just kind of like, okay, this is cool. I did this. On to the next. Like, what can we do next? And I want it to grow, right? And then when it does grow, then it's a great feeling. But then there's always like, you know, always know that saying, like when you get a little bit, you want a little bit more. You know what I mean? And I
Yeah.
feel like that's exactly like how it is. Like once you accomplish something or you hit a certain milestone, you're always like wanting more and more and more and more. You know what I mean? And like I could take Drake for example. Like the man's the biggest artist on the planet. You know what I mean? Like he has the most number ones in the world and he's still going and he wants more and more and more. So I feel like that feeling is never gonna like die. You know what I mean? That feeling is always gonna be there of like wanting more, you know?
Are you okay with that?
I'm okay with that, right? But I'm also okay with the fact that like if I'm able to do what I love, if I could be a multimillionaire and I could do what I love, which is music, my family is good. I'm able to tour the world, take them to like Italy, France, wherever we want to go, just like be okay in life like that, then I'm good. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like I'm not like I used to like as a kid be like, I want everything. I want the world. I want to be the number one artist in the world. I want to be like the biggest artist in the world, right? But I'm
yeah,
just like, yo, at this point, everyone also wants that, right? And that's like a never ending circle. And that might lead to like a feeling of like depression. That might lead to a feeling of like never being satisfied. You know what I mean? So I kind of set out my goal like, yo, I want to be a multimillionaire. I want to be able to take care of my family. I want to do music. I'll be happy with that. You know what I mean? And I've kind of come to grips with that.
so that's an interesting thing, because like it's kind of like your goals when obviously when we're young and we can't articulate it, like most of our goals are, I just want to feel like I matter.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, whether it's getting a girl's phone number, whether it's getting on stage, whether it's having followers, at the end of the day, what we're just saying is I want to feel like I matter. I want to feel like
Yeah.
I deserve goodness in my life, and I want people to know that I exist.
Mm.
And then you get a little bit older and you're like, oh, but that shit ain't going to pay the bills. So now I want to focus on, as I said, like,
Yeah.
there's these moments that look good for everybody else, but it may not have a practical standpoint in terms of, like, as you said, like, you didn't say I want to go to Italy, said I want to take my family to Italy. And it's kind of
Mm.
like that service to your family and doing things that matter to them. What caused that shift?
Um, I think what caused that shift is like kind of what you said. Like these milestones sometimes don't really make you money. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Like, how do I put it? For example, like me winning the Hot 97 contest, right? It opened a lot of doors for me and a lot of opportunities for me, right? But it didn't get me money that I needed to be financially stable and push my career even further and like help out my family.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the shift kind of happened to a point where I'm just like, okay, like all these milestones for Instagram just to look cool and just be like, I did this, I did that. It's very just like, it's cool to show off with, right? But it doesn't actually like, you know what I mean? Like when you have to take care of your family, when you got to pay the bills, when you got to do that stuff, it doesn't actually help you on that, right? It might lead to more opportunities to help you on that. But like, I want like stuff that is actually, what's the word I'm looking for? I don't know if it's fiscal or just something that's actually just like real that I could like
Yeah. Like
put into that.
maybe even the word's pragmatic, where like it makes sense. It actually helps. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I mean, and again, this isn't even an idea that's like exclusive to hip hop. It's like, people want to hire that real estate agent who drives a nice car. You want to believe in that investor who wears a nice watch. And there's something to be said about projecting success, attract success on different levels. And different people, there's always different levels of showing success. Whether
And
it's
sorry to cut you off.
no, no, it's all good.
To add on to that point, yeah, like so I used to think like, okay, I got to do all these things just for the gram and stuff like that. It makes me look cool, right? But now my mindset switched to like, now how do I make this a business? Like, how do I make my music into a business that I could live off of? Now that's me doing merch, that's me doing collaborations, that's me doing more shows. Like I have to figure out the business behind music, because like growing up, we're just like, yo, we want to be a musician, blah blah blah. We do it for the art, blah blah blah, right?
Yeah.
We still do it for the art. We still love to create what we love to create, but majority of the music industry is a business at the end of the day, right? And you got to make sure your business is right. If your business is not right, then like you're just an artist making music, not making money. You know what I mean? Like how long can you do it for just like the love of the art? When it becomes a business, then you could take it to another level where you want to take it to, and then you could like create all the art that you want to create.
Yeah. Are you finding little forks in the road with that, where you're kind of like, all right, the Rajan who loves the art wants to say XYZ.
Mm-hmm.
But the Rajan who's been in the game long enough and understands what's going to pay the bills needs to say ABC. You know, have you
Yeah.
found these forks in the road? Like, can you talk about one of those?
Yeah, so like I think a couple of years ago I was really into the thing like I have to make music that people are gonna like, right? And then so I kind of found myself being stuck in a place where I was just making stuff that I didn't like, but I knew it was getting like streams and that was working well. But now I kind of like pushed back on that, and I've kind of found a way to like make stuff that I actually do like still, but is also digestible for the audience. You know what I mean? And when you could find that and combine these two elements, then I feel like that's the perfect way to build your business and build your brand. And at the end of the day, I'm still figuring it out. Everyone's still figuring it out. Like, I'm not saying I have it down perfect, but I've been able to like step back from that mentality of like, I just got to do this because everyone likes it, to like, now, okay, I'm going to do this because I like it. But I understand like certain elements from this are going to make it digestible for the audience. And once I combine those two things, I'll feel happy because I'll feel like everything is progressing, but I'm still doing what I love at the same time, if that makes sense.
No, 100%. It's you know, and again, even outside of art, it's this idea, you know, like you go on a date with somebody or you meet somebody for the first time. It's, you know, this understanding of like how much of who I am can I share? Should I share? You know, nobody can be 100% open book. You know, at the same time, you know, there's no value to like wearing a big ass mask and being somebody else, because that's not sustainable either. So it's really about finding that harmony between who you are and how to connect with somebody else. And connecting is important. And also from a business standpoint, you know, businesses are only successful when they offer value to other people. So you can't tell someone like, if you don't get me, fuck off. You got to be like, let me meet you where you're at. You know, let me talk about what you're going through. Let me talk about my first heartbreak so you can relate to your first heartbreak. And I think that's super important. So you came, and this is something I didn't know about you until I looked into it, but you're from Winnipeg, right?
No, I'm from Brampton, but then I moved to Oakville, then I moved to Winnipeg, then I moved back to Brampton.
So how long were you in Winnipeg?
I was only in Winnipeg for a year.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay, because I was trying to figure out, because it did kind of feel like you came. So you were in Brampton and Oakville, and then what part of Brampton were you at?
I was in like Mayfield area of Brampton.
Okay.
And then I moved to Oakville, and then I moved to Winnipeg, then I moved back to Brampton around like Bramley area.
Okay, so you were in Mayfield back when like there was no cell phone service, and it was
Pretty much.
nowhere.
Much. Yeah.
So how was that culture shift going to Winnipeg for a year? What was that like?
Winnipeg is like really different in comparison to like Ontario or like Toronto. One thing I can say, it's really cold. Like if you think it's cold over here, it gets like -30, -40 over there, where it's like frostbite through your gloves, you know, like it's that cold. And I don't know, there's like, Winnipeg was like, I don't know, there's not much to do there at all, to be honest. So I don't really have much to say about Winnipeg because I didn't really do much in Winnipeg. I was only there for a year, and I went to school there for a year. And then when I came back to Brampton, then like, you know, everything was like normal again in a sense.
And then when you came back, that's actually when you started focusing on music as well.
Yeah. So when I came back to Brampton, it was grade 11. And then I was actually sitting in business class, and I was writing raps at the time, but just for myself. And then like I was rapping to myself, and then I think one of my classmates overheard me. He's like, "Yo, you're a rapper?" I'm like, yeah, I just write raps. And then he's just like, "Well, I have a studio, I make beats." You know, everyone in high school had like a studio, but it was just like, you know, their computer and just some speakers, right?
Which is still is right now.
Yeah, no, pretty much, right? And then so yeah, he's just like, "Yo, you should come over and you should make some songs to my beats." And then I came over, and then that's how I got into recording. That was the first time I ever started recording with him. DJ Drew, shout out DJ Drew.
DJ Drew. So was there a time where, you know, you knew it was in you, you knew you could do it, but you know, you had no plans of sharing it with the rest of the world? And was it DJ Drew that made that all that difference in terms of just getting you to stop rapping to yourself and sharing it with other people?
I think he kind of just like, by inviting me to rap at his studio, he kind of gave me the push just to be like, okay, let's try this out, right? Let's try it out for real. And then once I recorded at his studio and I put out something on YouTube and people started liking it, I'm just like, okay, like I could actually do this, you know? I was recording little songs with my cousin prior to DJ Drew, but like we were just putting it on Facebook and we were tagging everyone to listen, you know what I mean, back in the day. And like I was just trying to see if like people liked it, but like no one was really like coming for it. Like no one was really like fucking with it, you know? But then I think after like DJ Drew and I put it out in high school and it sounded more professionally recorded, then people are like, "Oh, okay, this is actually pretty dope," right? And then it just went on from there. That's when I started getting my own microphone. That's when I started recording on my own, and it was just like a rabbit hole, you know?
Yeah. It's never anyone to start actually like investing in yourself.
Yeah.
There's this show on HBO called Crashing. I don't know if you ever heard of it. It's legit the story of a guy like from day one wanting to be a comedian. So like from him thinking he's funny to going to his first performance, and throughout the seasons you see his kind of come up. So I'm watching this just as entertainment, but so often through watching his journey, I got like triggered. Like there's so many moments of like, bullshit that happens behind the scenes, bullshit that happens backstage. You're getting ripped off by a promoter, doing all
Mm,
these different things. And that was and this is like, I'm watching this in March of this year. So this is the first time I ever thought about those experiences. It's just like even traumatic. I didn't even, you don't
mm.
think about them. You move so quick in this game.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly.
and you start to realize it's this kind of journey of like, you try something, you fuck it up, you think
Hmm.
about how you fucked it up, you try something new, you fix that first problem, probably cause a new problem, fuck that up, and it's just a cycle of going through it. And I
Exactly.
didn't I didn't realize it until I saw that show, which was just like, oh shit, I've been through everything this guy went through, like
Mm,
everything this guy did. And it was legit. The only difference was one's music, one's comedy. Everything else was the same. Being in
mhm.
front of an audience, performing in front of nobody, sound issues, uh,
Yeah,
traveling by yourself, going to a gig, sitting on
yeah.
planes by yourself, all of that. Um, and and as I said, you're 10 years into your journey. Um, what is a big takeaway that has provided for you, especially now that you've had a year where no one can go anywhere? So now you kind of, everyone's kind of dormant when it comes to like the traveling, when it comes to
Yeah.
interacting with people, when it comes to the actual hustle,
Mhm.
the in-person hustle. So what was a big takeaway that you went through with all the shit that you went through with that? Because I can assume you've gone through shit with that.
So I think what you're talking about, like the unsexiness of it, like everything isn't like glitz and glamours. Like we don't put out music and it's just like everything happens perfectly. So
Yeah.
it's pretty much just like I've spent a lot of money on my music. I've lost a lot of money on my music. I've been in debt for my music. I've also made money on music. You know what I mean? So it's just like it's a whole process. People don't understand like being an artist as well is sort of depressing at times. So just like because we're our own critics and we over analyze our own work and we get in our own heads, that like making music sometimes can get depressing. You know what I mean? There's the happy moments and there's the sad moments. It kind of balances out. You got to really like go for it. You got to commit your life to it. You got to really put in 100%. You can't half-ass this, because if you half-ass this, it's not going to really work out. I've been on stage where I've been booed off. I've been on stage where I've had good performances. I've been on stage where my mic wasn't working or a song wasn't working and I had to improvise. You know what I mean? Like not everything has always went like dead ass perfect. For anyone who thinks it's just like you make a song and then you blow up, it's not that simple. It's a process, and there's a lot of like emotions that you have to go through. There's a lot of experiences you have to go through. There's a lot of like fuckery you have to go through in the industry as well. And I think it's just like I wouldn't trade it for anything though, to be honest. Like I love music and I love all the experiences I've been through, whether it's just like me getting booed off stage or me winning a competition. Like I take the highs with the lows and it kind of balances out, you know what I mean?
Yeah. So what's one thing through that 10-year journey that you're super proud of, that may not be something that you've been able to share publicly, just because there's no way to capture it?
One thing I'm super proud of, probably one of my songs hit like over 1 million streams, right? Me, like now 1 million streams is like nothing. Like we see so many artists with like millions of streams, right? But back in the day, like there wasn't like a platform for independent artists. You know what I mean? Like everyone could be an artist now and everyone could get 1 million streams if like their song pops off nowadays. Back then it was just like you had to be signed to a label, you had to be a part of the industry and everything, right? And so this was like 4 years ago when my song got 1 million streams, when like the independent artist wasn't as big. It was kind of just like an accomplishment to me, because I'm just like, yo, I put my own money into like funding the video. I put in work. I put my own money into mixing it, structuring the song, whatever it may be. Like I did everything, the whole process by myself, and just to see it like hit 1 million streams was just like rewarding. It's just like, okay, like you do have the talent to have millions of streams. You do have the worth ethic and you do have the right mindset to achieve that, and you can do it on your own, right? So it's just like, how do you take that now and you keep repeating that, and then you make it so that all your songs are getting millions of streams now? You know what I mean? That's the process to get to. But I think
Yeah.
just independently doing that on my own and seeing that, it was like a heartwarming feeling. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I feel you. So the interesting thing is, we grew up in a time where music was one thing, the music
Yeah,
industry was one thing, the journey to be a musician was like, something like make dope shit, get discovered, get signed, and have a career, and hopefully it works. Whereas now, the deeper you get into it, every single year that you put into it, you're like, oh, it's something completely different now.
yeah,
Um,
yeah,
and I know, for example, I think it was like, I think it was Frank Ocean. Um, I think it was his hit, I think Blonde or Channel Orange. One of them, he didn't submit it to get he didn't submit it to qualify for a Grammy.
Yeah.
And then they asked him, like, why would you not try to win a Grammy? He goes, the Grammys only matter because we grew up watching the Grammys.
Exactly.
And he's like, otherwise they really don't matter. It's just nostalgia. And
Mhm.
sometimes we see that. And I remember learning from a DJ friend here when I went to England for the first time. He said, as Humble the Poet going to England for the first time, he's like, look, you're going to meet all your heroes. They need you more than you need them.
Mhm.
Don't let them stroke your ego, and don't let them use you. And I thought it
Mhm.
was really interesting. And it's true, because you're just like, oh shit, I grew up listening to you. And you know,
Yeah.
they're gonna ask you for a feature for you to plug some of their shit or whatever. And every artist I meet is doing this battle where they're like, I know what works now isn't what worked 10 years ago or 15 years ago. But
Mhm.
10 years, 15 years ago is when the kid in me grew up, and he
Exactly.
wanted all of those things, even though I know all of that shit is dangerous. Like signing that deal is dangerous now.
Mhm.
Being associated with those people is a lot more dangerous. And no one's going to mess with you unless they can own your intellectual property. No one's going to
Yeah.
do all of this type of stuff. So how have you been kind of navigating that back and forth now?
I think it's kind of just like the same thing you said. Like growing up, we're just like, yo, we want to meet our idols. We want to get signed to a label. We want to do these certain things. But like all that stuff is dangerous. Like you said, I think I'm just navigating it now to like, if I meet an idol or if I meet someone in the industry, I take it with a grain of salt, right? Because I realize now that like back then when I was a kid, I would think like, oh yeah, they want to help me out. They want to like, they want to show love and stuff like that. But that's not really the case. You know what I mean? Like everyone in the industry realistically is looking out for themselves, and no one really gives a fuck to help you unless it's gonna benefit them. You know what I mean? So like, we can't have that like kiddish mentality anymore. That we're just like, oh, like let's say if we meet like a J. Cole, they're just gonna be like, and J. Cole's my favorite artist, right? But I can't sit here and be like now, oh, I'm gonna meet J. Cole, and he's just gonna be like, like roses and flowers. Like he's just gonna be like, yo, I love your stuff. I'm gonna put you on. I'm gonna help you out and stuff like that. You sit, right? You know what I mean? Realistically, in the industry, like people are going to want to see how you can benefit them, and that's the only reason why they'll fuck with you, right? So I've kind of just like developed the mindset now that like, okay, everything I do, like I have to do independently, and I have to do it like selfishly. You know what I mean? It might sound selfish, but at the end of the day, like you got to look out for yourself. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like when that time comes where I have to like sign to a label, like I'm not like looking at it with like starry eyed now. I'm not looking at it like, oh my God, I'm signing to a label. They're going to give me an advance. I'm looking at it as now like, what can I get from this label? Like, what is the best situation for me? How is it going to put me in a position to win? Because then realistically, if you think about it, if you put yourself in a position to win, you're also helping the people invest in you win at the end of the day. You know what I mean? But a lot of people investing in you in this industry aren't looking to help you win, to be honest. They're looking just to make a quick buck off of you, and they're looking to take advantage of you, right? So you got to like protect yourself now, and you got to look out for yourself now at the end of the day, because it's not all roses and flowers in this industry.
Yeah, and there's also a really, unsexy business term of tax write-offs. You have to understand too that people can invest in you and they can afford to lose in investing in you more so than you can afford losing investing in yourself.
Exactly.
So I can sign Rajan, and if he doesn't work, I just write it off the same way I write off a car or write anything off, and I just
Yeah.
move on. Or a lot of labels, it's like Taylor Swift is paying for them to sign 300 other artists, and those other 300 don't have to work because she worked. And I think that's a really interesting idea, and that lesson never comes to anybody, through reading an article. It always comes the hard way. It always comes
Yeah.
through meeting somebody and then getting kind of used or getting kind of pimped or getting whatever.
Yeah. Exactly.
Um, so, I mean, you don't have to say no names, but do you have any specific stories where you kind of had that rude awakening that way?
A story. Yeah, actually, I did. I don't know if I want to give away the person's name, but someone did try to sign me to a deal when I did my record with Tori, and that was doing well. They're just like, okay, I want to sign you to a deal. I'm gonna give you an advance of so and so money, and then you're gonna sign for like 2, 3 albums, and then we're gonna push this and we're gonna blow you up and everything like that, right? And I was like, okay, yeah, like that's cool. I've heard it all before. Like people have approached me before saying like, I'm gonna sign you, blah blah blah, give you an advance, but like, you know what I mean? Like, I need to structure the deal in a way that works for me, right? Because the deal right now works for you. You know what I mean? So when I started like kind of negotiating the deal and being like, hey, like maybe I don't want to sign for 2 albums or 3 albums. Maybe I just want to sign for 1 album and see how it goes, because I don't really know you like that. You know what I mean? Like you're promising me all these things, but I don't really know you. I want to build a relationship, right? Then there was like pushback on that end. You know what I mean? Then it was just like, oh, no, like, I don't invest in artists who are just going to do one album. I got to do it for a long time, blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? There's no point in me doing this. And then we kind of went back and forth. And then that person kind of was just like, okay, fine, we'll do one album. But, I own the masters and everything. And then when I'm just like, okay, no, like, I want to own my own masters. You know what I mean? He's like, you know what? I understand you want skin in the game, but that's not the way it works in the game. Just like trying to like confuse me and just like kind of manipulate it in a way to work for his situation. But like I've been in so many of those situations now that I'm just like, I wasn't stupid. I was just like, yo, I'm not doing this unless like, I'm owning my masters, because I know like how people get fucked up and they have to pay back for their masters and everything like that, right? So I'm just like, no, I want to keep my masters. I want to do one album, and this is how we're gonna negotiate the deal. So I was trying to structure it in a way that works for me. Whatever, things kept moving on, we kept having conversations, but then he had like this clause in it which was called a first right clause, and that was pretty much just like, if let's say I'm signed to that person, right, and a label comes to me and they're just like, oh, we want to buy him out for like $500,000, $1 million, right? He could be like, no, I'm putting up $500,000, $1 million for him to stay with me. So I'm always stuck with him at the end of the day, right? And then that was the one thing I was trying to get removed, because I was just like, yo, I barely know you. I don't want to be stuck to you. I don't know how you're gonna work with me. I don't know what you're gonna do for me, right? Can we remove the first right clause? I'll give you 50% of the masters. Like, I can meet in the middle somewhere, right? He's just like, no, I can't do that, right? And then once he was just like, no on that, I realized his intention, that like, he's not really looking out for me. You know what I mean? He's looking out for him at the end of the day, because if he makes an investment in me, right? I'm just like, if someone makes an investment in me and we're winning together, I'm going to stay loyal to that person. I'm going to continue to work with that person and grow with that person because that person believed in me. You know what I mean? Where they're pretty much saying just like, nah, like, I'm going to invest in you. And if like, you blow up, you're just stuck with me. I'm not going to let anyone else get in on this. Like, you're just stuck with me. You know what I mean? And that, I was just kind of like, I can't do this. You know what I mean? And then that deal fell through.
Yeah, and just for those listening that don't know the terminology, master refers to master recording. So back in the days when this shit was all on tape, Rajan records the song, it records on one tape, and that's the master. And then whoever owns that has to grant you permission to make copies of it. So right now, any mainstream artist they don't own their masters. So now the entities that own it, they have all the power to put that in a car commercial. They have all the power to put that in a movie. And this is not just music. So like, Dave Chappelle doesn't own the masters to the Chappelle Show. That's why it's on Netflix and he's not getting paid. That's why it was on HBO and he's not getting paid. That's why he asks people not to do it. Taylor Swift right now, her masters just got bought and sold by people that weren't her. Now she's trying to re-record all that music so she can re-own those masters. So, and it's that's the business. They want to own your intellectual property, and they don't give you ownership over the intellectual property. So now Rajan signs a deal. His grandkids have no access to his intellectual property versus owning a house versus doing it independently. And that's a really important thing to understand. And a really good story for that, which I won't get into right now, is Frank Ocean's when it comes to like what he was able to do to get his masters back and how he was able to kind of pimp the system. What is one of the most painful experiences you had as an artist that taught you the most?
One of the most painful experiences as an artist. Damn, I gotta think about that. Oh, okay. I think it was the first time I got booed like on stage, right? I think that taught me like how to perform differently and how to perform better, what to do so like the crowd doesn't boo you. Like it just changed my mentality, because I went up on that performance being like, yeah, I'm fucking dope. You know what I mean? Like, I'm gonna kill this show. Like, that's how I go into like every show, because like you don't want to go into it being like, oh, I don't know, like I'm kind of scared. You know what I mean? But you want to go and be like, I'm gonna body this. You know what I mean? So I went on to the stage and like I think I underprepared for it, because I was like feeling too confident that I was just gonna do well and people were gonna like it. And then I got on stage and I started performing. This was in my like younger years, and then people just weren't fucking with it, and they started like booing me, and they started being like, fuck you, blah blah blah. Like they were screaming and just like booing me, and then I felt so like embarrassed on stage. I didn't know what to do. Like I had to like get through my performance, and then like even worse, in the middle of the performance I was like overcompensating. Like I was like rapping even harder and I was yelling even harder just to make people fuck with me more, but it wasn't working, to a point when I started doing that I forgot my lyrics, right? And then so I'm rapping, and then the song's playing, and I forgot my lyrics. I'm just on stage like, and I'm trying to remember it, and then like I remember it, and I start rapping even harder, and people are just like looking at each other like, yo, this guy, what the fuck's wrong with this guy, right? And that was so embarrassing. And I got off stage, I cried. I cried when I got off stage. I was just like, yo, what the fuck just happened? Like, no one fucked with me. I fucking forgot my lyrics on stage. Like, I literally cried. And then after that, like, I took everything like serious. Like, anytime I had a performance, I over prepared for it. And then I was just like, I was super confident going into those because I knew that like I didn't half-ass it this time. And then I figured out like what people like and how to interact on stage, and it started working for me. You know what I mean? But that was that was like an embarrassing moment, but it was also a shift in myself to like take it more serious and over prepare rather than under preparing. You know?
Yeah, it's also like a rite of passage. Like, can you
Yeah.
call yourself a performer if you've never been booed?
Exactly.
You know what I mean? And you don't want to wait 10 years to get booed, then that shit'll crush you.
No, exactly.
What about life? A
A
painful
life,
moment that's taught you a lot that you're comfortable sharing.
a painful moment that has taught me a lot in life. Um, I would say like everyone knows like my mother passed when I was 10.
Mhm.
Um, I would say that taught me a lot in life, just more so just like it's like how I feel towards like friendships and people coming into my life now, right? Like when I lose someone in a relationship or I lose someone in a friendship, it hurts me, but I've kind of developed a mindset like, yo, like maybe everyone is temporary. You know what I mean? Everyone plays a certain role into your life. Maybe some people are supposed to be here for like 3 months. Some people are supposed to be here for 3 years. You know what I mean? But everyone plays a certain role in your life, and cherish people while they're here. And then when they're not there, it's okay. They serve their purpose in your life. You know what I mean? Because I look at like my mom, I'm just like, okay, she could have been in my life for a long time, but she wasn't. But the purpose she served in my life at that time, making me who I was, I cherish that. You know what I mean? So I've kind of taken that lesson and applied it to life in a sense.
So it's kind of like looking at people as seasons. You know, some seasons last longer than others.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, that's super interesting that, you know, experiencing something so intense at the age of 10, you
Hmm.
know, in terms of the idea of grief, the idea of loss, the idea of even just like what a 10-year-old brain can comprehend. Have you found yourself, you know, did 16-year-old Rajan revisit that? The 20-year-old Rajan revisit that and give it more meaning and context? Or was, uh, you know, how was a grief process with that? I've never lost anybody that close in my life,
Hmm.
as of now. But how did that process go, especially at such a young age, and how does it change over time for you?
Yeah, no, I would say like when I was 10, it kind of didn't like register. You know
Yeah,
what I mean? Like obviously when she passed, like, I was sad, right? But I was just a kid, at the same time, there's so many distractions as a kid. Like you're playing Yu-Gi-Oh, you're playing Beyblade, you have friends, you know what I mean? Like there's so many distractions as a kid. But I used that, I used music to write out my emotions after that passing. And that was kind of like my therapy for me, right? But in a sense, I also like suppressed everything. You know what I mean? When that
yeah.
happened, I suppressed everything. So through my entire teenage years, anytime someone wanted to talk to me about my mother, I was just like, man, things happen. Like that's life. You got to move on with it, right? Like I didn't really pay no attention. I didn't want to talk about it. Like I wasn't sad, but I just didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to express about it. So I suppressed everything, right? But then in my 20s, actually recently, like last year, is when I really started like thinking about it and I started grieving about it. Like
Mm.
I don't know, it just happened and it just hit me, right? I started like seeing old videos of my mom. I started seeing old like pictures and stuff, and it started just like hitting me. And I was able to grieve. And there was a lot of like there was a crying process of like getting everything that I had suppressed, built up, out, right? And there was a lot of like venting process to the people around me. And lucky enough, I had like great people around me who would listen and hear me out and everything like that, right? And so it's just come to a point now in my older years, I started to grieve more, but I've also started to celebrate more in a sense. I realize what's worse than dying is being forgotten. And so when my mother passed and I didn't talk about that, I was trying to forget about her. So I was killing her even more, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it
You know what I
does.
mean? Whereas now in my older years, when I talk about her, I express about her, I'm happy for what she brought to my life. And I'm happy that I got to share life with her. So I'm celebrating her. And I feel like talking about her now and expressing about her now is letting her live on. If you die and no one talks about you, like you're just gone. Like your soul will leave earth, right? But if you die and people talk about you still, you'll be able to roam the earth and your soul will live on forever because like your legacy lives on. And so yeah, again, I realized me not talking about her, me not expressing about her, I was killing her even more than rather now. I feel like she's alive and well.
Yeah, I mean, and I feel like, from if we zoom up far back enough, like the antidote for a lot of things and bullshit that we go through is gratitude. It
Mm-hmm.
sounds like, we suppress pain that we go through because we don't want to feel that pain. But, as
Mm-hmm.
you said, like you just went through a process. And one of my favorite quotes is, to go from a bad place to a better place, you have to go through a worse place.
Mm-hmm.
And it sounds like, for a long time, and again, you're 10, like nobody can hold it against you, and you may not even know what you've done. And we've all had survival mechanisms when we're kids that follow us into adulthood. uh
Mm-hmm.
Going through that process and then coming out the other side, you probably went to a dark ass place going through all of that, but you came out the other side in a world of gratitude and stuff like that. Have you gone back and looked at how that suppressing was impacting other parts of your life as well?
Yeah, I feel like it affected my relationship with women,
Mm.
to be honest. I feel like because losing my mother to me was like the biggest person you could lose in your life, right? And plus it was a female. Any like woman I was with, I felt sort of like after a while intimacy issues with them. You know what I mean? Because I guess I was always longing for like that motherly love, right? And I guess like the women I was with, like I held them to like a higher pedestal where I felt like they didn't match that level that I needed, which caused like intimacy issues with that woman. And I feel like it affected my relationships a lot, really. And it affected a lot of my friendships a lot because like now, like if I get into a fight with a friend or an argument with a friend, like I'll actually make the effort to like be like, no, this person's a good person. I want to keep them in my life. You know what I mean? Like you gotta fight for a friendship, or you gotta like, you gotta work things out with people. You know what I mean? You can't be so dismissive and just be like, all right, fuck it, whatever. But back then, I was kind of just like, oh, okay, they don't fuck with me. Oh, they don't want to get along. Blah blah blah. Fuck them. I don't care. Like, leave my life then. I don't care. I've lost someone already. You losing you is nothing. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? That's how like my mindset was before. But I felt like that was super unhealthy because you don't build genuine relationships like that, and you don't build long lasting relationships like that. And I felt like I was always going through friendships and always going through people and life just being like, yo, you don't like me, like we don't get along, fuck it, I don't give a fuck, blah blah blah. Whereas now, like there are good people, and like friends do get into arguments. People do have ups and downs, right? So you kind of gotta like look at people and be like, okay, like they bring value to my life and they are good people, right? So I want them to stick around in my life now rather than just being like, I want to be that loner guy who's just like, yo, I don't need anybody. I'm on my own. Like I'm a lone wolf type of guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah,
Now it's
yeah.
now it's just kind of like, okay, like I have good friends in my life and I have good people in my life that I want to keep around. And we're gonna have ups and downs, obviously, but I'm not in a stage anymore where I'm just like, if we go through a down where I'm just like, yo, I'm on my own anyways. I don't care. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and it's interesting because it's one thing to obviously accept what's out of your control, and not accepting that people can be seasons and come and go out of your life. But then it's
Yeah.
another thing to kind of level up and see the self awareness of it, where it's like, hey, maybe I'm the reason that these relationships are all fragments instead
I
of
was definitely the problem. I was
yeah.
definitely the problem. You know what I mean?
And I mean, again, and I know I've definitely gone through that as well, where it's kind of like, and I can definitely imagine it where you lose somebody at such a young age, and not only are they gone, but they're also kind of frozen in time for how you know them.
Yeah, exactly.
So most people say that you don't see your parents as human beings with flaws until you're in your 30s. So
Mm-hmm.
you see your mom, you put her on a pedestal because she is this perfect person.
That's an interesting the frozen in time. I've never looked at it like that. That's
Yeah.
interesting.
And then you start to, as you said, like now, you meet a girl, you guys connect, but by default, you're gonna have those see her with her makeup off moments. And I'm not talking about even physically. I'm talking about personality wise. You're gonna see a human being. You're gonna see flaws. You're gonna see
Yeah.
vulnerability. You're gonna see somebody who needs you, who leans on you. All of these things. Whereas, all of our understandings of relationships will always come from the earliest relationship we were exposed to, which for most of us is our parents. Um, and whether it's healthy or not healthy is not the point. The fact of the matter is we were exposed to it, and we generally will lean towards wanting that. Like, nostalgia. That's why we listen to old school shit. Like what reminds us of our childhood always feels good. And, a lot of people chase relationships without even realizing that mimic their families growing up. So I can
Exactly.
definitely see that challenge, and I've experienced that as well. And I probably had that experience more so with my sisters, less with my mom, with how
Mm-hmm.
they conducted themselves. And then after comparing every girl I came across, we're just like, yo, this girl's a human. Like, she makes mistakes, and I don't know how to deal with that, because I never saw that with my sisters, because they were both,
Yeah.
as much as I've accomplished in my life, I feel like they're just much higher level achievers.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I think that's an important lesson. How have you taken that idea of just like holding space? First off, holding space for other people to, as you said, like, now you don't look at uh, an argument with a friend is not a make or break anymore. You're not questioning the entire friendship if you and a friend have an argument, and you're not questioning an entire relationship if you and a girl have an argument. You can zoom in and just deal with whatever the argument is.
Mm-hmm.
How does that apply to your art? How have you brought that into your art now?
Into my art. Okay, so I want to add one point to that frozen in
Go for
time
it.
comment before I go into the art.
Yeah.
You're 100% right with that. I never looked at it like that, and I kind of just like realized it through this interview now. It's just like with my mom, like growing up, I saw my mom and dad's relationship as perfect, right? Because I was so young, that's all I saw, right? So I kind of held every woman on a pedestal to like have that perfect type of relationship. And if it wasn't like that, then I was just like, yo, this is not how like love is supposed to be like, right? But in my like 20s, now asking my dad, being like, yo, how was mom? Because I never asked, right? He was just like, oh, she was great, but like she was also like this. And I was like, really? Like she did that? She was like this, blah, 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 right?
Mm.
And I just realized, I was like, yo, I never saw that. You know what I mean? Obviously he saw that, but I never saw that because I was so young. So that whole idea of like frozen in time, like that's how I saw her, and that's how I applied everything. So it makes sense, right? And when I started hearing like, okay, she had this and that, right? Then I started realizing just like, yo, everyone in life is flawed. You know what I mean? No one is perfect, right? But being with a partner, being with a friendship, you kind of just got to sit there and be like, okay, this person is flawed this way, and this way, but they also have this bright spot. You kind of got to weigh out the good with the bad. And if the good outweighs the bad, then that's a good relationship. That's a good friendship right there. But if the bad is obviously outweighing the good, then that's something that you're not supposed to be in. But you're not gonna have just like good like this. You know what I mean? You're gonna have the good with the bad, and you got to see like what works for your life and how it balances out, and how it like what you want in your life personally. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So I think that's an interesting point you said, and to like kind of explain it to the art.
Because I want you to look at your art, because your art is a relationship. Like, you have a
Yeah,
relationship with Rajan the artist, you have a relationship with music, you have a relationship with your business. Um, and I think, again, going back to the ideal versus the real, and this is a big thing for a lot of young guys in general to understand, irrespective of what they go through in life, is we can't have healthy relationships until we let go of the ideal woman.
okay.
Like, and I remember a friend of mine, she's a model, and what she told me was, if she's confident and mysterious, she's faking it.
Okay.
Like, that's the energy she wants to put out there, but that's not her. And I always thought
Mm-hmm.
that was an interesting thing, where, like, there's a human being underneath all of that.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, when I'm going through it, I think about all my relationships, and probably the one, in addition to what my family's impacted me, is the career. Because
Mm-hmm.
the career, by default, for you to accomplish what you have accomplished and what you want to accomplish, there's no settling,
Mm-hmm.
there's no good enough.
Mm-hmm.
But there's still that idea of, you've frozen things in time.
Mm-hmm.
You've frozen the value of what it means, like, to get recognized by a celebrity. You've frozen a value about what it means to get a certain number of streams, a certain award. We've done all those. As I said, going back to the Frank Ocean idea of, we grew up
Mm-hmm.
watching it, that shit matters to us. So how does this idea of holding space for people, loving, it's loving somebody despite. It's like, hey, I know you got X, Y, Z. Every single person you love and you're crazy about in your life, you can list all their flaws, but you don't care. You love them despite that. But a
Mm-hmm.
lot of us don't allow ourselves to be loved when we have
Mm-hmm.
flaws. We're just like, I gotta be better. I gotta have more. I gotta be more. Then maybe
Mm-hmm.
I'll be loved. You know.
Mm-hmm.
So how has this? And if it hasn't happened yet, I mean, even now, you can just work through it, out loud. Like, how could this apply to your relationship with your work and your journey as an artist?
Okay, I think I'm gonna try my best to explain this just to answer your question.
Yeah,
I
yeah,
think I
yeah.
can, right?
I ask long ass questions.
No, no, it's okay. It's okay. I like it. So, I think just in music in general, like it goes back to the point of just like seeing something that works and then you hold it to that pedestal. So you got to keep hitting that mark. You got to keep doing that, right? But I realized that's like so unhealthy because like, damn, what's the best way to explain it? How do I say this? I'm a super perfectionist about my music, right? And I was just super all the time, just like I got to re-record all the time, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of takes, right? To a point where I started to fucking hate it. You know what I mean? But now I've just let go completely, right? I've just realized that like, okay, it can't be perfect. Like what I have in my head, it can't be that perfect, but it could get close to it. You know what I mean? And if it gets close to it, it's good enough. You know what I mean? And so I've kind of just like let go now. And I've just like, I used to do hundreds and takes, but I do like 3, 4 now. Like I started freestyling my records. I started to get loose and stuff like that. My recordings aren't always like the perfect vocal. I used to do like the same vocal over like 100 times and be like, I got to hit it properly. But now I'm just like, okay, that sounds dope. You know what I mean? Like I just be like, okay, that sounds good. I'm not going to do it like 100 times, right? Because I think to answer your question, it's more so about the feeling. You know what I mean? And so like if it feels good at the time, you don't gotta overthink it and do too much. Just let it be. Just go with the flow, feel it. And I think that's how I related to my art, but also related to people in a sense. Because if you look at people, I was always kind of like criticizing them, being like, oh, they don't have this, they don't have that, they don't have this, right? But at the same time, the feeling of certain friendships were good. But I over analyzed it and I was just like, oh, but they do this. Nah, fuck it. I don't want that in my life and stuff like that, right? But if I just like kind of sat back and I just like went with the flow and I let myself feel something, and if it felt good, I should just kept it. You know what I mean? I shouldn't have overanalyzed it. And I don't know if that answers your question. I was trying to answer.
No, it definitely does. I think, you know, thank God for mumble rap. I think that's exactly what it is. If
Yeah.
you know, and I know you're a lyricist as well. You put the effort in with your pen, you know, and the first time you hear somebody mumble rap, you're like, what the fuck is this? But what they're doing is they're focusing on the feeling.
The feeling. I think
You know,
more
none of
so,
us understand Despacito and we'll all sing along. There's a
no, that's a
feeling.
fact. I think more so the feeling now through a record. You can feel the energy when someone
Yeah.
records through a record. It translates. You know what I mean? And I feel that's what takes a record to another level, whether it's like a hype record or a sad record. If you could feel someone's energy through the music, I think that's what makes people latch on. Not the fact that it's recorded absolutely perfect. You know what I mean? It's just the energy. And I feel like energy travels through music to people.
Yeah, exactly, with the vibrations. And I think that, you know, and I think what you were getting to with people is just the same thing. You know,
Yeah.
it's not, especially for brown people, because we've been raised to look at resumes, you know, what their education, what they're doing, what's in their bank account, what's their family, what's their caste, all these things. But the question, you know, and that's like looking at a record. You're like, you know, is it recorded in the right frequency? Is there an echo? Is there a delay? Did he enunciate all the lyrics? But at the end of the day, like if it made you feel something, if it makes you get up and go to the gym, and it's the same thing with people. It's like, yeah, this person may not be what I was taught is important on paper for a friend, for whatever, but when I'm around them, what are the feelings that I have? You know, do I feel good about myself? Do I feel good about life? Do I have energy? Am I drained? And I think that's an important thing, you know, I think that we're kind of taking out of this, because I think all of our relationships are important. Not, you know, the three major relationships are our relationship with ourselves, which is the most important, our relationship with other people, and then our relationship with things in the world. And I don't necessarily see a difference in that. And I think, you know, the love story of you and your music versus you and another girl versus you and yourself can all the tips and all the lessons that you learn from one can apply to another. And I think that's kind of
Exactly.
what I wanted to extract from this more so than anything else. Now,
You explained it better, way better than I did.
I mean, I'm figuring it out as you talk. You know, I think, and this is, as I said, like I've been waiting to do a podcast until it didn't feel like work, and this conversation not feeling like work. So I'm figuring it out through you as well, through hearing your story. And I think that the big premise for me is like, can I have conversations with everybody and learn as much as I can from other people,
Yeah, exactly.
even if we have a handful of things in common versus others.
Mm-hmm.
If you could, you know, the popular question is, if you can go back in time, what advice would you give yourself? I like going the other way. So if you could go 5 years into the future, what advice would you give, I guess 2025, 2026 Rajan?
I would say make sure you hold on to good people around you, because good people are hard to come by. And especially when you're in the industry and succeeding and everyone is taking advantage of you or trying to take advantage of you, you're going to need the grounded people around you who actually genuinely love you, care for you, and are gonna look out for you. That's what I would say.
That's a really good one.
You know, there's a little freestyle on the spot. I was feeling it.
No, I mean that I think that's the thing. A lot of people, and I'm always telling this to every single rapper I know, which is like, well, people need to understand whether, you know, for people who are listening, whether you like hip hop or not, you need to understand that hip hop, by definition, is the most evolved form of literary art.
Mm-hmm.
Like, you have to realize Jay-Z is better than Shakespeare. Like, you need to understand this, and you can take your favorite rock song, your favorite Radiohead song, and compare it to any rapper's lyrics. They're writing more, they're saying more, plus they're adding cadence and rhyme. So I feel like the best, you know, the most powerful communicators are always going to be rappers, and that's why, you know, I write books, but for me, writing a book is light work compared to writing a 16. You don't have to rhyme in a book. You just vomit out the ideas and then just proofread. It's not, you can't even do that with rap. You have to still, you're constrained to syllables. You're constrained to a rhythm. You're constrained to a certain theme or whatever. So
Yeah.
everything you're saying is going to be freestyle on certain levels. And sometimes,
But I think writing a book is also very, like, it's a big accomplishment as well. Like, not a lot of people write a book. So for you to do that, like, first of all, congratulations. That's amazing, right? And I would also aspire to write a book as well. But like, I don't. That's like another thing. You know what I mean?
I honestly think, as somebody who's put out albums, to somebody who's done a whole bunch of other, like, I've you know, maybe I've written screenplays as well. Maybe a screenplay is the hardest of the three, but I think writing a book, if you were already an MC, just with it's just, you know, you're already 7 feet tall in that world. You know, and I think from that, the amount of skills a performer needs to have. You're a baseball player. You have to know 20 different things to be good at what you do, and I think originally, you know, when I got into writing, it was like, oh, I don't have to rhyme. I just have to say whatever. It's almost like what you would, you know, imagine you were going to write a specific song about something and you made an outline. That's what writing a book is. It's just, you get to say everything and there's no rules on how you say it.
I guess because, like, even writing music, sometimes you can't express everything exactly because you're like, oh, it has to rhyme at the same time. You know what I mean?
And that was the next question I was going to ask you. It's with a lot of artists, and I think a lot of people who are listening who consider themselves aspiring artists. I think once you begin creating art, you're an artist. You were doing this for therapy. You were doing this. This was your method. And the important thing I think a lot of people have to understand, whether they realize it or not, is that our thoughts, the things that are in our heads, A, they're not always our thoughts. Sometimes they're other people's thoughts into our heads. B, they're not complete. You know, sometimes we think things and we think there's value to them, but if you say it out loud, you realize it doesn't make sense. If you write it down, you'd be like, wait, that's not correct. So the process of clearing your thoughts comes through either writing or speaking. So I can, and that's the therapy of writing. You know, so you were writing to make yourself feel better, going through whatever you were going through at the time. How does it feel when you put that stuff out into a world of people who don't know you? They don't have any context of you, or, you know, maybe their first 3 songs were from like the reality Raj age when, you know, it was more R&B. It was, you know, straight for the ladies, and then all of a sudden you drop something about your mom.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? How is it easy for you to make that switch, or is there hesitation? Did you ever regret doing it after the fact? I just want you to talk about that.
Okay, so I think when I first started making music, I gave absolutely no shits about what anyone said. You know what I mean? Like, I was just making music because, like, it made me happy. You know what I mean? And like, I loved doing it. So I didn't really pay attention to what people said. I think as it became more and more serious and it became my career, we've all had those moments where we started like reading comments and like over analyzing our own stuff and just like getting self-conscious about our stuff. You know what I mean? You read, like, you put so much work into something and then you read one comment of the dude being like, this fucking sucks, and you're like, oh fuck, my day is gone, bro. Like, I put so much work into that. One man said like it fucking sucks, and it fucking sucks now. You know what I mean? Like, we've all had that moment where we felt self-conscious like that, but I kind of like got out of that again, right? And I kind of just like realized, like, yo, I don't give a fuck. There's gonna be people who like my music. There's gonna be people who don't like my music, right? At the end of the day, if I could put out what I want to put out and what I love, there's gonna be people who resonate with it, and that's who I do it for. The people who resonate with it and like it. Because personally, I don't like everyone's music, right? and there's some people's music that I do like. So I realize it's the same thing with me. I can't have like everyone's not gonna like my music, right? But if there's people who do, then that makes me happy because that's the music I make and that's the people I do it for. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I have a friend right now who's doing super well on the independent scene.
Mm-hmm.
And I hit him up to just kind of get some like technical, like, all right, like, what are you doing? Like, how'd you get your streams up? What you do, whatever.
Yeah.
And I love this advice. His advice was like, yo, just put out music and pay attention to who's being nice to you and be nice back.
Be
And,
nice back. Okay.
and that's it. He's just like, at the end of the day, 90% of the people that listen to you, you're just a distraction for them and they don't care about you. They might like
Yeah.
that one song, but they don't care about you. He goes, then there's about 10% of people who really care about you and they're very
Mm-hmm.
nice to you. He goes, pay attention to them and be nice back. He
Mm-hmm.
goes, that's all that matters. Because that's all I do. He goes, I do nothing else. He goes, I don't run any ads. I don't have any strategy. He goes, I make a song that I like, and I'm just nice to the people who are nice to me. And I was like, and I was looking at my notebook after we were on the phone for about an hour and a half. And I
Yeah.
was like, if I took a picture of this and I posted it, it doesn't look like music advice. It looks like life advice.
Yeah.
You know, just focus on the people who are nice to you and be nice to them. Like, what else matters? And in this
Exactly.
world of social media where everyone's got an opinion over shit that they shouldn't have opinions on, and it's
Exactly.
just so easy to get lost in that. Um, what's a big, or what's an important idea that 2020 has given you? Because I mean, for different, you know, for the artist, 2020 has definitely been a double-edged sword.
Mm-hmm.
So what's been an important insight that 2020 has kind of gifted you?
2020 kind of just like, it just, in my opinion, showed you what's really important in life. You know what I mean? With this whole pandemic, the entire world slowed down, right? So it was just like, let's say people who were like avid clubbers and stuff like that, going out to clubs all the time and stuff like that, like now they can't go out to clubs and now they got to stay home. Now they got to be with family. Now they got to worry about certain things, right? I think 2020 just put into perspective what's really important in life and the people who are actually going to be there for you. Because I know a lot of people who got into relationships this year and a lot of people who got out of relationships this year because they actually look at their partner now with no distractions and they're like, oh, actually, we don't get along as well as we thought we did. You know what I mean? So I think just like I learned who's here to stay, what friendships are here to stay, what people are here to stay in my life, and who's really there for me. I think that's the most important lesson that I found out about 2020, and that like family is so important, bro. At the end of the day, like family is going to support you. I know like a lot of people don't have good relationships with their family and some have great relationships, right? But then people who don't have good relationships with their family have good relationships with their friends who tend to become family.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So again, like I'm rambling, but I think the
You're
most
not
important,
rambling, bro. This is the point of the podcast, bro. People want to hear this.
yeah, so I think like the most important lesson I've learned in 2020 is just like you see who really values you and who really cares for you and who's going to be there for your life going forward now, because life has kind of changed in a different direction now. You know what I mean? It was I feel like it was just like a start over. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Life was just a start over, and
like
now like
a reset. It was a reset.
yeah, like a reset, right? Like I feel
Yeah,
like this whole year was a reset, and now going forward, what you do with your life kind of shapes your life for the rest of your life.
yeah.
You know?
And then as an artist, has this changed anything that was, there's that famous quote, man plans, God laughs, so I think 2020, that's a big one. People had plans this year and then God laughed. Um,
Mhm.
were there any adjustments that you had to make in 2020 or adjustments that you are making now for 2021? Now that, as you said, like people didn't realize a lot of things because everyone was moving so fast. Everybody was distracting themselves with their lives. And
Mhm.
then, the big pause button got pressed and everyone had to like stop, look around and be like, oh shit, like why am I doing half the things that I'm doing? People are like, people are owning cars just to go to work. People are wearing certain clothes just to have certain lifestyles. And all of a sudden, none of
Mhm.
it mattered anymore.
Mhm.
For your artist journey, for whatever strategies, for whatever short-term, mid-term, long-term planning you make, were there any changes that you did now that 2021's coming up? People are
Yeah,
going to hear this in 2021 as well.
yeah. I think I just had to realize how to put out music consistently more now. I actually started putting out music more consistently this year,
Mm-hmm.
right? So 2020, in a nutshell, it actually helped push me to go for it more, because it showed me that just like when the world shut down and like people aren't available to work and stuff like that, it kind of like kicked me in the ass being like, yo, fucking go even harder now. You know what I mean? So it kind of, I would say 2020 kind of like inspired me more to go crazy in 2021 and beyond. You know what I mean? I had to kind of like reevaluate how I'm going to put out music, the way I'm going to do it, the way I'm going to promote it, the way I'm going to market it, who can I work with, who's not here to stay now. Just like a lot of stuff I had to figure out in this new year. And I also started like selling merch for the first time in my career this year. You know what I mean? So I started thinking about music as like a business now. You know what I mean? Because when you can't do shows and you're not making money off of shows or anything like that, and shows get taken out, now it's just like, okay, one part of your income is taken out, right? Now you got to realize like, how can I make more income for this music, keep it going, right? Okay, well, streaming is going to make me income. Okay, now I got to take on collaborations. I've done collaborations in this year, and I'm like, okay, merch is also going to make me income too, right? So I started thinking about music more as a business now, right? And I'm happy that this year happened, because now my music, I'm able to make the art that I like, but I've turned it into a business where I could like sustain off of it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's super dope. I mean, I guess, the way I try to end these conversations before I get you to share whatever last thoughts you have is just kind of like, after I have a conversation with somebody, and this is something I just do in general, is I start to try to like see like, oh shit, like this person could do X, Y, Z. And I think just based off our conversation right now, I could definitely see in a couple of years, you saving a lot of young talents a lot of years of bullshit by, taking them under your wing, schooling them to like, all right, this took me 10 years to figure out. Now you're gonna do it in 5, and now you get to go ahead and do the next levels of stuff, and encountering people who tried to pimp your shit. And that's the big thing with this game, is pimps and hoes. It's always pimps and hoes. It's the basics is be a hoe until you can be a pimp. And I've learned this a million times, and there's got to be a way to break that cycle, and that cycle's got to be broken by people who decided, look, I didn't want to be a hoe, nor do I want to be a pimp. I'm gonna have healthy relationships with other people. We'll have open relationships, and we'll talk about our splits. We'll talk about the percentages. We'll explain that I'm offering this much value, so I am going to take this much profit off the table or whatever. And I definitely see that for you. And I think, and as I said, like the common recipe for success is sticking with it. And I mean, you've made the commitment that you're doing this until you're in the dirt. You know what I mean? So by default, like, for me, it's, the second somebody decides to be free, they are free. The moment someone decides to be successful, they are successful. Because I know a lot of very miserable, wealthy people who are trapped in cages of reputation, a lifestyle that they have to maintain. The more rich and famous you get, the more rich and famous you have to be. There's a lot of all of that. So I think for you, just the fact that you made that commitment, you're already there. And I think I just want to honor you for that, and I appreciate you sharing that time and that insight with me, because I think I'm learning shit just having this conversation.
Likewise, thank you, man. Thank you.
Bless, brother. How do you want people to find you?
Like musically?
Anything, just right now. Like if people want to connect with you, people want to learn more about you, people want to be a part of your movement.
Yeah. Oh, they can find me on Instagram, Twitter. Everything's Rajan905. You can follow me. I haven't posted anything this month, but in 2021, I have a lot of stuff planned that I'm going to go crazy on, and just be consistent and just go off. Like I've been saving up a lot of music that I'm going to put out in 2021. And I'm just like excited, man. I'm not only excited for me, I think my mindset shifted. I'm excited for everyone. You know what I mean? Now I used to kind of just like look at people and I'm just like, why am I not there yet? Oh, why are they getting that? Blah, blah, blah. You know what I mean? I used to be like judgmental a little bit, but now I'm just like, yo, everyone's like on their own path. Everyone has their own timeline. And when it happens for them, it happens for them. Now I'm more so just like excited to follow my timeline. After such a shitty year with 2020, you know what I mean? I'm just excited to see how everything unfolds now, not just for me, but for the people around me and for everyone. You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's interesting that the people we consider our biggest competition are actually the people who are our biggest colleagues.
Exactly.
Those are the only people that understand what we're going through.
Exactly.
And instead of isolating ourselves from them and being like, oh shit, now this person had a good day, because they're not. It's just all for the gram anyway. So like, oh, this person had a milestone, and now it makes me feel like I'm not doing enough. It's like, no, that's the only person that gets what you're going through. If you guys are
social media is so toxic, bro. It's so toxic.
So is that the reason you haven't posted anything this month?
No, the reason I haven't posted anything is because I've been just like working on music and saving up music so that like I could unfold my plans how I want to do it in 2021. So I've just been working. But yeah, just to go on the social media thing, like, yeah, seeing other people's milestones and certain things, like it can really get to you. You know what I mean? But at the end of the day, you just got to realize that like you're on your own timeline, they're on their own timeline. You know what I mean? And I just feel like if you put out good energy into the world and you're supportive of people, you'll receive that same energy back. You know?
Yeah, and back to what you said earlier about kind of converting, not really converting, or finding, using our pain as an opportunity for gratitude. That's, what we were kind of talking about earlier. It's almost the same thing even with social media, which is, what I learned is when I envy or I admire, what I'm actually doing is I'm teaching myself what really matters to me.
Mm-hmm.
So let's say, for example, you post a blinged out necklace. That ain't gonna make me feel any type of way. But tomorrow, let's say you post a collaboration with J. Cole. That'll
Mm-hmm.
definitely make me feel some type of way. You know what I mean? Like, because that actually aligns with my priorities. And what I
Yeah.
should be doing is not about you. I should be paying attention to like what triggers me and why it triggers me. And then I learn something about myself. And I think, you know, oftentimes going back to the idea of suppressing, we try to suppress jealousy, we try to suppress envy, when really they're gifts, just like all other pain, to teach us what's important to us. And
Mm-hmm.
and I'm saying this more so even for the audience listening is, a lot of people feel lost, and I feel like the best way to start to find out what's important to you is look to who you admire,
Mm-hmm.
because they're teaching you what is really important for you in your own life.
Mm-hmm.
So it is toxic, and I'm not telling people that you can spend all day on Instagram and not feel like trash. But I think
Yeah.
paying attention to why you feel like trash, and I have it too right now. And there's people who are not even in my art, who I just saw. There's a specific artist. He's not in music, but I specifically saw him in March say, "Don't complain about this pandemic. Create, create, create." He said it out loud, and now I'm seeing the benefits of his creation. And he just reminds me that I didn't work hard enough. I have nothing against him, but he's showing me that I wasn't working hard enough.
Mm-hmm.
And then that makes me feel like shit. So now I'm avoiding his posts, even though I don't hate this guy and I wish nothing for the best of him. But it's teaching me that what's important to me is a better work ethic, working
Mm-hmm.
harder, because everybody has something to show for it.
Yeah. So to go on that point where you just said, I feel like I realized like being more self-aware now. Anytime we feel like jealous of something or someone else, it's just a projection of our own fear or shortcomings or us not working hard enough. It's just a projection of our inner self. You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
No, you're 100%, and I think it's super revealing. And I've been really going on this journey of just like, don't reject the emotions, learn from them, pay attention to them.
Mm-hmm.
And I appreciate you being open about that. Again, not everybody's willing to be open about their emotions and what they can learn from that. So I really appreciate that, man.
Thank you, man. No, I love like speaking about this now because in a sense, like suppressing it, it's just like over time it builds up and it's more hurtful to you. It's more detrimental to you. You know what I mean? Like being able to talk about it like this and share this, obviously someone's gonna hear our podcast and they're gonna relate to it and they're gonna feel like they learned something from it, right? And at the same time, being able to talk about this openly is freeing in a sense. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
I feel free to be able to talk about all this and not feel any type of way about it or be like, oh, what are people gonna think of me? Oh, blah blah blah. Like I just feel like I could be myself. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and again, that goes back to our conversation about what our responsibility is with regards to not putting up this image of being the ideal.
Mm-hmm.
Or just like, oh, everything's perfect. But again, we grew up with that. We grew up with only seeing Will Smith when his movie was coming out.
Exactly.
We grew up with all our superstars not even being human. We didn't even know what they did on a regular basis until they dropped work. And now we're in a
Mm-hmm.
world where like you see every single day and everyone's trying to project all that shit. So and it comes at our expense. So I think it's super dope that, you know, it's a matter of time for anybody on this journey, including you. And again, man, I'm excited to have another conversation with you in a bit after there's new things that have been revealed. And again,
100%.
man, I learned so much from this shit. So thank you so much, brother.
Likewise, bro. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And again, all social media, Rajan, Rajan 905. Whatever social media you dig, check them out. And then it's not Rajan 905 on music services though, right?
I just Rajan on like Spotify, Apple Music.
Yo, and check out all them tunes. It's a mix of melodic hip hop. There's bars. There's some of the R&B stuff. Don't let his symmetrical face fool you. It's not just for the women, but it works out for the women too. So and he's been doing this forever. He's sticking with it, and again, that's the sign of this. So get on now, and you can be like I was there before that shit pop, because it's just going to continue to pop. And one thing I learned from Lily, she said, you know, don't worry about going viral. Just let your shit grow. And I can see your stuff growing, man. So I honor you for that, brother.
Thank you, man. No, I appreciate you having me on this podcast too. It was great talking to you, bro. I learned a lot from this.
Yo, the goal was this, man. Like, we can't, Jay-Z said it, right? We can't heal what we don't reveal. And it's just, I'm trying to create a space where people can start revealing and we can all heal and learn from each other.
Exactly. No, I agree.